The Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, Pebble Beach Pro-Am DraftKings picks and preview. We'll be going over the entire field, each of the ranges, making our picks, and recapping the winning lineup of the Pat Mayo Experience DraftKings Open, which the Listener League link is in the description of this podcast, of this video. So you can go join that now, up to 3,000 spots, very flat payout structure, $5,000 to the winner, $3,000 for second place, and I believe it's $2,000 and $1,000 for third place and fourth place. So we didn't up the first prize, but we made sure that anyone who gets high in the cash, if you come inside the top 10 or the top 5 of a 3,000 person tournament, you deserve to get paid $15 to enter, 3 max entry. It is the best golf tournament, maybe the best contest all sports on DraftKings. You're gonna want to check that out. Don't make me look foolish by not having it fill now that we're up to 3,000 people either. We got to get in this, and I hope everyone enjoys it. It's rake free, and that really goes a long way to helping the payout structure. I do want to let everyone know, if they smash the like button, leave their DraftKings handle in the comment section. Tell me your 2 favorite players from the $6,000 range. You are in a draw for 20 DK dollars. I'll be announcing the winner on next Monday's show, which I'll be doing with Jeff Feinberg, talking about Riviera and recapping this tournament. Also, if you want to get into a draw for 20 DK dollars, go to the audio feed, the audio podcast, whether it be iTunes, Audio Boom, Spotify, Stitcher, no matter where it is, leave a review, something positive, 5 stars about the show and your DraftKings handle, and you're in a draw for 20 DK dollars as well. Gotta get those ratings bumped up. That's how people find the show. If you see the show on Twitter or Facebook, share it around. We need as many new listeners as possible. We call them dead money because they'll probably just listen to me. If you listen to me, you probably lose. That's why you want to listen to the guy who won $20K this weekend, Ben Rasa from Awesemo.com. What's up?
What's up, man? How are you?
I mean, you had a fantastic week on DraftKings, and you hit your one and done with Ricky Fowler. And Fantasy National members, good week as well. So sign up for FantasyNational.com. Over 30K for members. Took down one giant GPP, third place in another, but 20K just by yourself is pretty damn good, Ben.
No complaints. Yeah, I was traveling. That's my good luck charm. Every time I'm on a plane, I seem to right the ship. I needed a good week. Ricky, little scary, obviously. That was a crazy Sunday, but he pulled it out. It was nice to see him win. I thought he obviously deserved it.
Well, you had mentioned to me just before we came on air that this year has been a bit of a struggle so far. I've sort of been the opposite. I got hot towards the end of the swing season, started off good with Kuchar at the Sony Open, and I've just been treading water on DraftKings, really, and I had a horrible week at Torrey Pines. Brennan Grace really bailed me out big time at the Waste Management Open. But can you just talk a little bit like how if you're having these losing weeks, and I know you're playing a lot on DraftKings, then you hit a really big one to even yourself out or get up a little bit. Like, how do you deal with those downtimes?
I mean, it's such a tough I think one of the most difficult things, especially in a high variance sport like golf, is assessing the week that just happened in terms of, did you make a mistake or did not pan out? It's like I just said, it's super high variance. So you don't want to panic. That's the hardest thing. You start to press. You start to change things, you start to do things differently, and then you can really get in a tailspin. Obviously I've done it for a little while. The key for me was, honestly, I couldn't get 6 of 6 through. That has been killing me all year. I'm not beating the field in 6 of 6. I was able to do that. I tightened my core. I loved Ricky last week. Obviously, it's easy when, you hit one and you get it right at the top, but it's really just about trying to assess it properly and not panicking. And at the same time, being able to say, you know what, that wasn't bad luck. That was a leak. I need to kind of reevaluate how I'm building each and every week.
I think people really fall into a trap, and I know this has come up a bunch of times on the show, but like people will play baseball and they'll go through like 10 losing days of baseball, and you have to reevaluate what you're doing because it's just not working out. Or even in football, you're 10 weeks into the season and like it's 10 separate slates. With golf, 10 days of baseball in golf terms is like 2.5 months. Like it's such a limited sample that we're only a month into the season that a lot of people blow up what they're doing because they had 2 bad weeks in a row, but that's 2 bad slates in a row. It's not the end of the world. If you think your process is good and you can back test it or you've had success with it before, it's no reason to jump off the ship. Like sometimes you just don't do well.
Absolutely. And another thing to keep in mind, in these fields, 6 of 6, a lot of times, 5, 8%. So if you play 20 lineups, I see people all the time that are like, oh, I only got 4 6 of 6s out of 20. That's a good thing. Those may not pan out long term, but if you're beating that 6 of 6 percentage, it's not like you're going to be getting them. It would be great to get 60%, but that's just wildly unrealistic. So like you said, it's only a couple weeks in, even though like I said, slow start for me. I was not feeling great about it, but I by no stretch was panicking either. You got to take the long view approach.
If we go to the top of the Pat Mayo Experience Open, you will see the name KP McCurry. 562.5 points was good enough to take it down. The frustrating part of me, I look at his team and I'm like, I had those guys. I just didn't have them all together. So here's the team. It's Ricky and Justin Thomas. I had a lot of Ricky and Justin Thomas lineups.
Me too. I started like that.
So that really worked out. The problem was there's one key piece that I was missing here. So it's Trey Mullenix and Terrell Hatton and Sung J M. I was big on those three. Had a ton of them. Had a ton of Ricky. Had a ton of Justin Thomas. He had Emiliano Grillo, who was 19% owned in the PME contest. And he was the missing link that I didn't have. I didn't have any Grillo. You know who I had at that same price point?
He was like mid-7. Oh, Kyle Stanley?
No, I actually had Luke List and Daniel Berger. That was fun.
Ooh, Berger, yeah. I actually, it was Friday. I was in Florida. I left with him on 18. I thought he got through. And then I saw his just absolute, that was awful for the Berger owners. Grillo, he was my highest owned guy. Him and Ricky were my two biggest leverage spots. He tried to give it back. But for me, Ty Hatton was the guy I wasn't on. Sunjay Im, I was right with you. He was great last week. I thought he was low-key very impressive.
He was. And I mean, once we start talking about Pebble Beach, you're going to hear his name come up, not only on this show, on the show I did with Feinberg, because we both bet him at 50-1, but I have a feeling that he's going to be a very popular play industry-wide this week. So I guess we can get into a discussion of whether he's good chalk or bad chalk, but it's somewhat frustrating when I see a winning lineup like this, because I could have landed on this team. I mean, so even something like Trey Mullenix, like I had Trey Mullenix in the $5 and he was like 3% owned. And I really liked Mullenix. It's 2 weeks in a row I've really liked him. He was 10% owned in the PME contest, which is kind of funny. But he was really good. Like for bang for your buck on Mullenix, I know he melted on the weekend, but he still ended up, T15? That's pretty good from Trey Mullenix.
Definitely. He was sub 7K. And this exact conversation just speaks to what you were just talking about. Like in a sport like golf, you could be overweight on all 6 of those guys and still have a rough week. It's just, you're not going to hit the right combo every time, even if your player pool is good. You just got to try to keep putting together, plus EV lineups, and eventually all that stuff takes care of itself.
So congratulations to KP McCurry on your gigantic win. You got some thousands of dollars to play with. I hope you re-enter the PME contest this week. So I got a shot to take the money. Actually, it's not really your money. Well, it is your money, but you have a lot of entries into the PME contest before you give back all the $5,000.
Yeah, he'll be good for a couple of years. That's not bad.
Yeah, it's like when Luke List eventually wins. I'll have all my years of Luke List betting paid off.
Yeah, you better hope he wins sooner rather than he's getting to the point where one win might not do it. He might have to win like back to back to get you into the black.
Well, I ended up money on List last year because he came inside the top 5 3 times, and
those each ways
carry the day. It was just like Siwoo last year. He finished top 5 enough that it's at least treading water with him instead of just taking an absolute 0.
Yeah, List killed me. He was the same price as Grace, and I had 0. Did not get to Grace.
Grace was really interesting because he was a late add to the field that a lot of times, like, if people are influenced by content providers, like, or even if they watch like my show with Jeff, Grace wasn't yet in the field, or he had just been added like 20 seconds before we went on air and just had no real takes on him. We barely even mentioned him. And then I've been filming these shows back to back on Mondays because I'm still technically on paternity leave, but I like to get the golf content out. It's my thing. I can't just skip golf content that
Man of the people.
He never really came up. And I think it's because he was a late ad, that I think he was like 1% owned, that it would have been odd if you were on him. Fortunately, I got some in-play action on Brendan Grayson. It saved my week.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, hit him live. Yeah, it was just well said. He didn't even cross my mind, to be honest. There were other guys, and we'll see. This week, I know we're obviously kind of recapping, but this week is just, I thought the pricing at first glance was kind of tight. I did not see a ton of glaring value when I scanned the field.
Well, that leads us right into Pebble Beach. 156 players in the field. It's a 3-course rotation between Monterey, Spyglass, and Pebble Beach. These courses can play anywhere from the easiest on tour to some of the most difficult because of wind and rain. Right now, it's super rainy in Pebble Beach. These are all short courses, so driving distance doesn't matter. You want to be accurate off the tee, especially at Pebble Beach because they've started USGA preparations for the US Open already this season, that you're getting courses that are below 7,000 yards. You want to stay out of the rough. They're very tiny greens, so ball striking, especially on approach. Like when I went and looked at, there's only shot link data for Pebble Beach, none for Monterey and none for Spyglass. However, that strokes gained approach is almost 4 times as impactful as off the tee. That might change a little bit this year because the rough seems so penal. Not as bad as it's going to be 3 months from now, but more so than it usually is. And if it's wet, that's only going to make matters worse. And we're looking at extreme potential wind on Friday and Saturday. So this tournament's just going to be a complete clusterfuck, to tell you the truth. And where everyone gets 3 rounds, at least 54 holes, there are guys potentially, if the wind kicks up on Sunday, that people who miss the cut but score a bunch of eagles could outscore people who played all 4 rounds.
Yeah, this is bad. I thought that the Desert Classic and this were one event. I thought we were done with this. Now I remember this, and you said it. You've got limited shot tracker, limited data, strokes gain data. Wind is that's the biggest defense. If these play easy, you can really take advantage. They're so short of these par 5s. If it's playing hard, could be brutal. Saturday cut, celebrities, all of these things are not ideal, but we'll see what we can find. Obviously, everyone's in the same ballpark. It is very tough to draw a lot of conclusions.
So when I punched in my key stats to fantasynational.com, it spit everything back out to me. The things that I weighted the most, strokes gained approach was by far the most impactful. I don't want to give away my entire modeling system, but I have that weighted at 35% this week. I actually, instead of using off the tee, I used fairways gained because I think you do, especially at Pebble Beach, really need to keep it in the short grass. And it's wedge play. So even basically 100 to 150 yards out, who leads in proximity from those places and around the green numbers, because where the greens are so tiny, no one is going to hit all the greens in regulation. And if the rough is thick, you're going to need a short game in order to really have some sort of impact. The 2 corollary courses that always pop up for me here, we've seen a lot of crossover success with the Masters, which is just kind of strange, but maybe it's because some of the elite players play here. But Heritage would be the other one, just because it's also a course where driving distance and off the tee isn't all that impactful. It's a second shot course with tiny greens that you either need to hit a bunch of greens in regulation or be good at getting it up and down.
Yeah, I see. The Masters is a little odd. I see Heritage, of course, where driver's not a weapon here. Got to scramble. Short hitters, kind of, I don't want to say odd players, but we've seen, Ted Potter and DA Points.
Von Taylor.
Yeah, it's not a track. Even with a talented field, you wouldn't think guys like that break through, but it's just a testament to these are weird conditions. And if you get wind certain days, guys can make a move. Obviously, when we're breaking this down, I will be building some correlated teams based on where guys are playing, try to group them together, because we're not going to know. It could change mid-round, and I wouldn't be stunned to see a course advantage in terms of which day you get Spyglass or Monterey.
And the problem with all that is we do not know which of the courses will play easier, even if the wind does pick up. So I like that idea of correlating your teams with the courses and pray that one of them gets an easy draw. And then you have 6 guys that are taking advantage of scoring opportunities where there are none at other places. The problem is you're going to have to play 3 sets of correlated teams. And even if the weather, even if you project out the weather to be really bad, maybe that never crops up. Maybe it does. Who knows? That maybe you play like the all Mutter team. Like you can have Brendan Grace, Brant Snedeker, Shane Lowry, Russell Knox, just take out Russell Henley, just take all those guys and shove them in a lineup and pray for the worst possible conditions. And hey, those guys are pretty good. They hit it low and can scramble well.
I'm not opposed to that. Like I said, those are the type. Russell Henley's a guy we're certainly going to, I actually really like him this week. I used Knox a little last week. There's some dudes you can go to those guys. Obviously, I really do think the key is accurately predicting the off the tee. It's certainly not a huge asset at this place, but if the rough is a little up, if it's wet, maybe guys are a little more aggressive off the tee, and maybe guys who we've seen get away with some stuff here are penalized a little more. That is something I'm definitely taking into account.
Yeah, I guess that really it's going to be hard to judge how impactful the rough is really going to be. Generally, it's a non-factor, but some of the fairways at Pebble Beach have actually been shrunk in preparation for the US Open. That even just looking back at the 2010 US Open and seeing some of the types of players that played well there, Graham McDowell won that year at even par. Dustin shot 80 on Sunday when he was a gigantic leader going into the day. That you can see where the bogeys can be made. That's why I do think that around the green and scrambling could be somewhat impactful here, just if the conditions get really bad. If it's the conditions are super, that stuff's not going to matter, because if you're gaining strokes around the green and there's no wind, you're screwed because you're not making enough birdies to compete. Like, the winning score at this tournament could be anywhere from like -8 to -23.
Yeah, a huge range of outcomes. And it's easy flag positions, obviously, because of the amateurs. So that'll help around the green, but it really does come down to what kind of environment. If it's dead out there, they'll flag hunt. Guys will be making birdies all over. These par fives are super gettable. There's even 4 at the par 71. So they'll have plenty of opportunities. It's just going to be, what does the wind do? What does the weather do?
I'll have my DraftKings cheat sheet up on dkplaybook.com and posted in this podcast and video a little bit later on. And I'll have the actual draws, like the rotation of courses, and you can go look up the tee times to figure that out. But it is, if you play Spyglass the first day, it's a rotation of Spyglass, Monterey Point, Pebble. So if you play Pebble first, then you go Spyglass and Monterey Point. That's the rotation of the courses. I would expect most of the visible big name players to start at Spyglass. That way they get on TV for Pebble Beach. Then they would get Pebble back-to-back days on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's top 60. Obviously, I'm sure most people know that, but that makes it even harder, I guess, to get 6 of 6 through, but you're not losing 2 days worth. So you can hang in. And like you said, if we get crazy wind on Sunday, it might not be the worst thing to have one less guy on the course, to be honest.
The other big thing, too, is there's been like 13 withdrawals so far, and DraftKings, good on them. They released their pricing super early, but a lot of these guys are stuck in the system. They'll have a big O next to their name. No word yet on whether people get reinstated into the field. I doubt it, because that never happens. Only at majors once the pricing gets updated. But there's a lot of landmines in the field, like Kevin Na's already withdrawn, Chris Kirk is withdrawn, Kyle Stanley, Vijay Singh. They'll have O's next to their name. Just be cognizant of there's a lot of players in the field that are not actually playing. DraftKings will tell you that next to their name, but in case you don't know what O means, you might think that O stands for outstanding. And you play those guys. Unless you're playing head-to-heads against me, just make sure to play guys that are actually on the course. Final thing before we get into the picks, since there is such a range of outcomes based on the weather, based on the types of courses that maybe we don't know how the setup is going to be, is this a week to play purely on game theory when looking at ownership and just take those low owned guys, because it's going to be super difficult to actually project people out?
I think so. I think a lot of people, it's a tough gauge to say whether this happens or not, but I think in a tournament like this, especially for someone like me who goes a little more on feel, people use their same process and it can actually get you into trouble. Because if you keep in mind, if you're looking at the data, you're only looking at the Pebble Beach data. And sometimes I feel like people are getting skewed narratives of what's actually happened here, because we truly don't know. And that's going to dictate ownership, of course, because people are using what we have. And I totally get that. But at the same time, if people are congregating around the wrong guys, at worst, even if they're close, I will take the dips in ownership. If you're giving me a third or a fourth of 2 guys that I have relatively close, and it's based on things like course history or the data that we have, I'm definitely going to blindly lean on game theory in some of these spots for sure.
I think that's a very sensible move this week as opposed to other weeks. I also think it's a week that course history can come a lot into play. We've seen the same players consistently have success at this tournament, especially the top end players.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Obviously DJ and the gang up top and certain guys are just built for this, and the way the courses are laid out, it allows tracks like this, I think, do tailor to certain guys, especially even when you work down. Some of them, the way they play, they just can't compete at some of these other tracks. So there's an opportunity for guys, and we've seen that with guys out of nowhere kind of winning here. So you can open up the player pool, you can take some stabs, but if there's massive chalk, even if some of these guys, obviously there's going to be reason they're chalk, I will most likely have way underweight on a lot of them.
That's what I was thinking too, and we'll get to who I think are going to be some of the chalkier players. Obviously, I haven't seen what the industry is saying. I just know who I like, and generally 2 of the 4 people I really like turn out to be uber chalk that I'll have to see if I can get away from. Like, getting away from Damon last week in Gooch was the best thing that I did. Just Damon was getting way too talked up for a guy that just isn't that talented, that if he's going to go off at 17%, in Fantasy National, there's an ownership projection tab. I would recommend checking in on Wednesday after people have sort of created their lineups to see where the ownership is actually going to fall, because it changes throughout the week. That it's just an instant cue to get off that player.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's always going to be, it's a fine line. If one of those guys goes off, you're in huge trouble. But especially, again, high variance, some of the weaker players, Damon's a good example with his stupid hat. It's tough. It's tough to buy in there. You really have to allocate a ton of shares to get leverage on a guy. And in something like this, with all the stuff we talked about with the unknowns and the atypical format, it's hard for me to say, okay, if this guy's 20, 25% and someone right next to him is 5%, I'm going to lean to, the guy who's getting a fifth of the ownership in those spots.
Let's get into the pricing, because I think that chalk at the top end is better than chalk at the sleeper end, only because those guys are supremely talented. That you can find your leverage, but a chalky Ricky Fowler is much better than a chalky Joel Damon when it comes down to it. So above $10,000 for this week. Number 1, the guy that has won here twice. He plays well every single year. Lost to Ted Potter Jr. last year, though. Outdueled on a Sunday, $11,400. The only 11+ K guy. It's Dustin Johnson. You got Jason Day, Tony Finau, Tommy Fleetwood, and Matt Kuchar at $10,000. He almost got his 3rd win last week, which is kind of nuts. Of that top end, I love Dustin, but everyone's going to like Dustin. I think I might go with Jason Day, because statistically he does not rate out well, but he always plays well at this tournament. And if this does become a scramble fest, when you're talking short game, you're talking putting, there's really very few people better than Jason Day.
Yep, that's where I'm at. Jason Day is my favorite of the top. He obviously DJ dominates here. Jason Day also dominates here. And the way he's playing fine. The putter is hot. It's in tune. He's a great scrambler, world-class scrambler. He's got to be better with the irons, there's no doubt, but it's early in the year. I'm not too worried about any of that. You save $500. The guy, I'll just get right to it. Tony Finau, to me, I always complain that I like him, but I would never play him because he's 30% owned every week. I feel like this is finally the week where the ownership will truly not be there. He's in obviously expensive range, played bad again. At Farmers, he obviously just doesn't, or Waste Management, he just doesn't like that course. Do you think we see like an actual ownership dip with him, unlike we've seen it in a long time since he's been on this run?
I do. I don't think it's going to be like nothing, but I think where Dustin Johnson is so expensive that building a lineup with starting with Dustin and then going to Finau is too scary with the rest of the way that your roster would look, that people just will overlook him. I think that starting your team with Finau is kind of smart. In my last 24 round modeling based on my key stats, Finau actually rates out number 1 ahead of Dustin Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, I've like I said, I guess I've assumed a Finau hater role, which is what it is. I just really haven't found many spots where I could get leverage. This is a week where, depending on ownership, I agree, we're going to have to monitor. I'll definitely have some interest there. I don't mind starting with him. But overall, to me, it would be Jason Day when you factor in everything. DJ, I don't really worry about the Saudi Arabia jet lag thing, but it's not great. It's not the perfect ideal situation. But he is the most expensive. He's going to be very popular, and for good reason, of course.
No interest in Kuchar or Tommy Fleetwood playing his first event over in America, first time at Pebble Beach.
No interest in Kuchar. Fleetwood, I mean, I don't know. Where did we see him last? Dubai, I want to say, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, he was either in Dubai or Abu Dhabi.
Okay, so he's been chilling over there. He's obviously not been on my mind. He hasn't been playing great from what I had seen. 10-3. Oh, maybe a little sliver, but he would be behind both Day and Finau for me.
I think that he would be someone better to put in one of those all-weather lineups. Like he could be your team captain in the bad condition lineup.
Yeah, in the apocalypse lineups. I don't mind that. Yeah, he's built. I mean, he's got plenty of experience on windy garbage coastal tracks. I don't know if I really want to start with him. You probably have to. It's going to be a tough sell to get two guys. I didn't see a ton of value, in the way bottom, and that's what you would need if you get two over 10K. But he's very talented. I'm assuming he's here to get ready, since there's going to be a major. I have a feeling that's why a lot of guys are here, but not a strong play in my opinion overall.
He was T16 in Dubai 2 weeks ago, and he was T42 in Abu Dhabi the week before that. So he's fine. I'm not holding that as a positive or a negative. I like the fact that he has played. Kenny Kim pointed this out, and I brought this up on Monday's show, that Americans dominate this tournament, like big time.
See, I didn't know that. That's interesting. Well, hopefully one Aussie can get in the mix, because Jason Day, I have a feeling I'm going to be overweight on him.
Jason Day consistently performs well at this tournament. He's just never won it.
That's true. Yeah, I'm looking. You look at the winners, obviously, with Sneds and Spieth and DJ and those guys. Ted Potter. That's interesting. I wonder if that's just noise or there's something to that.
The last time a non-American won this tournament was 2004, and Vijay Singh won. Before that, Brett Ogle, an Australian, won in 1993.
I don't know who that is. Yeah.
I don't know who that is either. And before that, it was Bruce Crampton in 1965, another Aussie. So, I mean, if it's going to be international, Aussies are looking pretty good.
There we go. So we can say it's been just Oz. Well, one VJ pulled out. He's got one of the O's, so don't play him.
Yeah, Jason Day was second at this tournament last year in a tie with Phil, Shez, and Dustin Johnson behind my main man, Ted Potter.
Unreal. Yeah, I remember that's the only thing I remember from this tournament is just Ted Potter, who was like plus 350 in the head-to-head against DJ, just taking him down.
So Day and Finau is where we're looking from the above. That seems so weird. I think that building uncomfortable lineups is what you want to do this week. And because you get three rounds from everyone, piling up on birdie makers at the very bottom. Like, I know the scrubs are super scrubby, but it's not the end of the world by taking. The more uncomfortable your lineup looks this week, I think the better it might be.
It is one of those weeks because, and again, I haven't built, it's only Monday. At first glance, there's not going to be that many ways to build quote unquote comfortable lineups. And if you build them, it's kind of like Showdown where it's like, oh, this lineup is great in the NFL. If you found a lineup that goes to 50,000 and it seems great, so did 1,000 other people. So there's going to be limited comfortable builds. I think you got to embrace some really counterintuitive stuff, especially up top where these are all world-class players. It's not like you're taking a crazy risk by starting with Fleetwood or Finau or someone a little atypical.
$9,000 range at the top. You have Patrick Cantlay at $9,800. It's then Phil, Spieth, Reed, Scott, Casey, and Shez Reavie at $9,000, who's overpriced in the betting market, who's overpriced on DraftKings. I still like him. We'll get to him in a second, but two guys that I bet are in this range, and the stats do not back it up, but I'm going on feel here. I like Spieth and I like Phil.
Spieth and Phil. Fresh off his just another low-key collapse. That was awful last week for Phil.
It was, but like he had a really good round one and just a very atypical Phil round two. Like he sucked around the greens and he sucked on approaches. And he like drove the ball really well, which is like the anti-Phil round if there ever was one.
World Phil. For me, I'm with you on Spieth. I don't even know where he's at, to be honest, anymore. I'm not even going to try to predict it. He played at a bad. I did not think Torrey Pines does not suit his game, and he was all right. We've seen flashes of it. The putting's better, but the ball striking, I don't know. It's not great. I don't think at this point. I think Cantlay for me is a guy that I'll look at, especially if it's calmer. If it gets real tough and he has to scramble a ton, I don't love that. I think he can hold his own. He's again also coming off. He tried to rally at the North Course, could not find a way through a couple weeks ago. The guy for me that gives me trouble is Patrick Reed. He got cut here last year. He's coming from Saudi Arabia, another guy that's not ideal, but I'm not sure how popular he's going to be. And I think that his game, kind of with Jason Day, is in a similar, he can be shifty around the greens. He can do enough, can get hot with the putter. I don't mind going there this week.
Yeah, and you'll know right away because when the wedges get dialed in with Patrick Reed, he's somewhat unstoppable. And I think that he falls in that Spieth Phil category, that if we're going to de-emphasize the huge impact that off the tee can make, I think he fits in that category with those two, that if you just neutralize driving ability across the board between the big hitters, the short hitters, the accurate hitters, and the guys that spray it, these are three guys who spray the ball off the tee. And if they can dial it back a bit, which you can with these short courses, and just get it to the short grass, then you're looking at guys who have like seeking approaches and can make putts when they all get hot. He's the guy on the outside looking in for me, but I get it with Patrick Reed.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of like me. Phil would be the third of those three for me. I'm just a little freaked out by him, but it's a tough range. Then you've got Scott and Casey. They're talk about unknowns. I really don't have much to say on either of them. Maybe a flyer. I don't think I can commit to a huge stab.
I'm good. I'm good with an Adam Scott fade. Not to say that he's going to be bad, but I just know he's going to be popular coming off his performance at Torrey Pines. That Casey is going to be the one who no one owns here. And then Shez is right there. I really want to pull the trigger on Shez. He sets up so perfectly for this course. Coming off a good week, had the second last year. He hits every fairway. He's great with these short irons. That how popular could Shez possibly be this week?
Mm-hmm. I've heard that before. That the answer is more popular than you would think. Shez gets crazy popular, and then bad things happen. He does fit incredibly well. Like you said, he's got the double combo. Bogey free on Sunday. Great finish to the waste management. Runner up last year. The game fits. Price is a little much, obviously. I think you're paying for a lot of that right at the top. If this is the issue I'm having. If he's 20+%, there's no way that I'm getting over on that. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I can see that. In the statistical model, he ranks out third. So over the past 24 rounds with Shez Reavie, he's fourth in strokes gained approach. He's first in fairways gained. He's 19th from 100 to 125 yards and first from 125 to 150 and 150 to 175.
Yeah, this is how it happens because Shez is going to be like 40% owned in cash and 20-something% owned in tournaments. That's going to be a wait and see. Again, this is where ownership does matter. I know we can't nail it down. There's a ton of people out there who do great work. On the ownership front, I'm going to have to see and try to gauge it because if he's mega popular, I'll have to diversify and do some other things. And if he's not, if he's in the teens, then I get it because like you just said, he sets up truly well for this course.
Yeah, so we'll let ownership play that one out with Shez Reavie. I'm with you. I think if he's over like 17% owned, he'll be just a complete fade across the board. I don't play enough lineups to take an underweight position on really chalky guys. It's either I'm going 50% of my lineups or none of my lineups, and he's not a player I have that much confidence in, and I would have to sacrifice a Phil, a Spieth, guys who are just better than him. And that's the whole problem what might keep his ownership down is that even when you go into the $8,000 range and you have someone like Brendan Grace right below him at $8,900 coming off a good week, you know that he's going to get the narrative that, oh, it's crap conditions. Brendan Grace is going to be great. And he probably will because he loves crap conditions. That he might draw some of that ownership. Shane Lowry is right below Brendan Grace at $8,800. He just won over in the desert. He also has a reputation as someone who just mucks it around, that the worse the conditions, the better off that Shane Lowry is going to be. Then you got Hadwin. Fitzpatrick's over, who I think is going to be a skill set narrative guy. I hate Matthew Fitzpatrick, so I'm not playing him. Kokrak, Sung Jae, who I love, is going to be super popular. Rafa Snedeker's a two-time champ. If you have bad conditions, Russell Knox is right there. No one's going to play champ at $8,000, but like this $8,000 range is super confusing because the only two guys that I really want to play are Grace and Im.
This is the range. I think the key to the entire slate is the 8K range. There's a part of me that sees like narratives for all these guys, and then there's a part of me that's just like, I'm not sure I want to go anywhere because Im stands out obviously, but he's going to stand out to everybody else. Fitz Magic, yeah. He's been beaten up on Tanny Hara and the gang in Asia. He's playing pretty good, but that's a that's a pretty steep
Well,
price.
I pointed this out to Feinberg because there's some people that love Matthew Fitzpatrick. This is more of a bear. I've been bringing up Bear-Off a ton, but there's been a lot of Daniel Berger and Matthew Fitzpatrick talk, and that's like Bear-Off central when it comes down to it.
Okay.
You can listen to Bear-Off on the Golflandia podcast with Wiley, and more of this will come out. But I posed the question to Feinberg, and I'll ask it to you. What's the difference? I know Kyle Stanley withdrew between Fitzpatrick and Kyle Stanley. If you put Kyle Stanley off the PGA Tour and put him on the European Tour, and he got to play these like dinky Euro events, like wouldn't we think that he's way better than he is?
Well, yeah, that's fair. There's a lot of truth to that. I get it. I think I like Fitzpatrick a little more. He's a better putter, that's for sure. But he certainly benefits from beating up in the Omega Masters or whatever the hell he excels at over there. Then he comes over here, and I'm not sure he gets. The thing with him is he doesn't seem to get a price drop, but in any sense of the word, they have him rated kind of in a different tier than I do. But then you can go to the other flip side and say, if he was in the mid sevens, he would garner a ton more ownership. At this spot, I don't think a lot of people are going to play Matthew Fitzpatrick, with him and those guys that we just talked about. So that in certain stacks is somewhat appealing. The guy I wanted to bring up, though, is RCB. Not playing particularly well. He hasn't been on the mind. Played here last year. Uneventful, 26th. If Im is mega popular, I will allocate a couple stabs with RCB and roll the dice in that spot.
So you think that if you pivoted down, RCB is a better option than Knox or Snedeker? Because the one thing I will say about Rafa Cabrera Bello is that you get a wedge in his hands and he's lights out.
Yeah. To me, he makes the most aggressive play. Obviously, Sned's, he loves POA. He loves this course. I see that. I think you're going to get a significant discount from even Snedeker to RCB. So I'm not saying you can't look there. Knox, I'm kind of indifferent about. I get it, and I'll use him in certain spots, I think. But if you're looking for a true flyer in that range, RCB, I think maybe of all the guys in the 8K range, he might be the lowest owned of all of them.
Potentially, Kokrak is someone that no one is going to own, even coming out. It's just so expensive, and his skill set is not on paper what you would want for here. But I mean, you could build a Bombers lineup. What if you use Cameron Champ?
Yeah, Champ is. I used a little of him last week for like the first time, and it wasn't great. Obviously, there's definitely merit to saying, you know what? Especially we did talk about. Maybe not that it's going to become a Bombers course. I'm not saying that, but maybe with some of the things, in terms of the rough, in terms of the weather, guys are a little more aggressive, and guys like Champ, guys like Kokrak, JB Holmes, who's just a clown right below him. Maybe there is merit to taking a stab and grouping them together and saying, you know what, I'm going to put more emphasis on the driver this week, get low ownership on guys. And if it plays that way, you're at a huge advantage. The
case against Cameron Champ here is that if he's not hitting every green in regulation, like he's piss poor around the greens. He lost 5.5 strokes around the greens in Phoenix. He lost 2.3 the week before, 2.3 the week before that. He actually hasn't gained strokes since 2017 when he was an invitee to the RSM.
Yeah, well, it's a lot harder when you don't gain 11 strokes putting as well. He's starting to find that out on the tour, but the fad now. Obviously, I don't even think Matthew Wolf's not in this, right?
No, he's not.
Okay, so because I mean, there's a new wonder kid every week. Champ is old.
I used Matthew Wolf last week. He was good.
I respect that because I didn't. I used Albertson like an idiot. I should have used.
I used some Albertson too.
Okay, fair enough.
That was not good.
That was very bad. Wolf, very impressive. No doubt about it. We'll see what comes of him in the coming weeks. Hopefully he gets in a few more tournaments.
You have any interest in Grace and Lowry? And actually, I think that the fair Matthew Fitzpatrick comp, Kyle Stanley's kind of pushing it a little bit, but Hadwin and Fitzpatrick are very similar.
I see that. I see that more than Kyle Stanley, to be honest.
Now that I see them next to each other, they have very similar games.
Okay. I should have made that. I don't think I have any Shane Lowry. I'm just not going to go there. Good for him. That was a cool win over in the desert. Grace is more, someone I'd look to play. I like that he's in form, of course. I don't like that, it's easy to say this now in hindsight. The time to play Grace was last week when he was 1%. I was not getting on him. That was a very tough call. I did not see it. again, I know I'm beating a dead horse. We'll have to see. I don't think he gets in a crazy ownership. He'll have some, certainly not going to be a 1%er after that form. And he does get the bump for being a notorious, if it's tough conditions, US Open style, that's his wheelhouse. But yeah, I wouldn't mind going balanced and maybe a couple guys in that, high 8s, low 9s range.
Hadwin is sort of interesting now that I'm looking at the numbers. He's 21st off the tees, top 10 in fairways gained, so he's going to keep it in the short grass over the past 24 rounds, and he's top 10 in the field in both par 5s and par 4s from 350 to 400. There's a bunch of those across these three courses that no one is going to own Adam Hadwin. He made the cut last week, but was not particularly good. Maybe Hadwin's a guy to look at.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've seen him go low, crazy low.
And it's POA too, and the guy's putter on POA is like fire.
Yeah, dangerously insane. So it's there. And now he rallied. He was dead and buried early last week. So, and that just speaks to how, you said this at the beginning. He's the type of guy where he might not give you the best placement points, but he can really score. And that's half the battle. You get, especially if it's easy conditions, ton of birdies, ton of streaks. That stuff just comes so handy. And the price is a little much to be just relying on pure scoring. You're going to need some placement points, of course, but I wouldn't mind looking to him, especially if it looks like probably not going to be a popular play this week.
Let's head to the $7,000 range, and this is where it starts getting tough. You mentioned his name already. I know Ulrich's on him. I've bet him. I mentioned it on the Monday show. Is Russell Henley setting up to really kill us this week?
Wow. Yeah. I'll be honest. I really thought that you would be surprised that I even mentioned him. Maybe I missed it. Yeah, I guess everyone's seeing he was very good tee to green last week. Starting around into form, 15th last year here. I think it sets up well for him. He had been pretty ugly for a little while there. This seems like a buy low spot, maybe one of the last buy low spots that we could have with Henley.
Yeah, especially because we're going back to Florida and you get him on Bermuda and all of a sudden he starts putting again. But he has 2 wins, one at the Honda, one at Sony, both coastal courses, plays really well in the win. And even in 2010 at the US Open, I believe he was top 20 at this course. So it sort of fits his game. Like, he's going to keep it on the fairway. You get a shorter iron in his hand. And the thing with Sony and the thing with Honda is both of those are short courses as well, that it's really setting up. But I have a feeling that everyone is just gravitating towards that name because, like, who else around him do people like? I like Charlie Hoffman at 7,500. I thought I saw something in him last week that was good for the first time in a year. And if I say the Masters, then hey, Charlie Hoffman could pop up. So I like those 2 guys, but I don't really have any particular take on anyone else. Like, Scott Piercy rates out well in the model. So does Lucas Glover, but stats lie about those guys. I hate to tell you.
That's right. Yeah, Lucas Glover was a quick death of a lot of chalk last week.
I had him as well.
That was a problem. Yeah, Doug Gim not going there. The guy for me, and it's, again, this is where feel comes in, and it is what it is. I'm prepared to continue to buy on Dylan Fratelli.
So is Feinberg. What's going on? Like, as I mentioned him, don't we want him at courses where, like, it's like Aaron Wise? Like, give me like a 7,700-yard track with Fratelli.
See, do we? See, I know he's got obviously a good driver, but I see, Texas guy, good in the wind. I haven't really seen it. He's not been playing great. He's shown a little, but I thought 7,500 and tracks like this, I think actually with the 4 par 5s and a shorter course, it sets up pretty well, even though I do see the narrative where when you say Wise, I know what you're talking about there, but I'd take a stab at him. 7,500, I don't think that's the craziest spot at all.
He's terrible. Maybe. He's terrible with a wedge in his hand. That's the one thing that really concerns me. He's close to last in the field from 100 to 125, close to last from 125 to 150. And he's going to be getting it into that range because the guy hits the ball a mile. He is really great off the tee. And maybe he can somehow make that work for him this week. I'm going to be off of him. I'd prefer to play Charlie Hoffman. What about the Gim Reaper? Shout out to Paul Shag for that one. But he's been playing okay. He even played well on the web, I think. I'm actually going to look into that to see if he played well on the web last week.
Yeah, sounds true.
He may have missed the cut for all I know.
Yeah, he was DQ'd. No, I mean, I don't know. This guy, I was impressed. Obviously, I did not think he would, he fell back a little, but that was a good showing a few weeks ago.
He was T3 on the web last week.
there you go. Not sure where they were, who he played against, but still, obviously the form is there. It's just for me, I have a tough time where I look and it's just the talent. I know he's playing well and maybe he's going to be very good, but you have Henley, Fratelli. You mentioned Charlie Hoffman. Molinex doesn't really fit, but there's just other guys who are just better golfers that I've seen a lot more of that I think I just have to prioritize over someone like him.
See, Molinex is super interesting to me. And it's the thing where I think he's going to dial back a bit off the tee. And I know he bled a bit on the weekend. Maybe his hot run is over, but he's a guy that you can kind of put him in the same boat as Fratelli because they're similar players. And his short game is just an absolute disaster, which really worries me. Out of 156 players in this field over the past 24 rounds, he ranks 153rd in strokes gained around the tee or around the green. And that will probably get me off of him. But if he can continue ball striking like he was the first 2 days, the guy is good with a wedge. Like, he sticks it.
And you know what? Again, he's someone we've seen, like when Molinex gets going, he can really get going. So, and this is where it's tough. You got the 3 courses and they are shorter, but I don't think you can just rule out guys who are good with the driver. It's just, it's very delicate. I'm going to look to some of them, especially together. You mentioned Fratelli. I wouldn't be stunned if I have teams with like Fratelli and Molinex. Maybe even starting with like a Fina, stuff like that, where you can look to some of these heavy hitters. I know, as you mentioned, sadly, Fratelli with the wedge, that could be a problem, but I'm still kind of intrigued by Trey. I think I may go there with you, take a couple stabs.
Can I interest you in a guy who at this course has a 47th, a 14th, and 2nd the past 3 years? He's also won this event before and has like 5 top 10s and 10 starts.
It's funny. I have like the recent form. I have no idea who you're talking about.
Nick Watney.
Oh boy. He's another 75. God, that must have been from the Wayback Machine.
He won here in 2011, but the last 3 years he has been 47th, 14th, and 2nd, and he was like bad those years, and he's kind of good now. Not good now, but like he's a lot better now. Him and Streelman are the 2 course history guys I have a lot of interest in.
He's definitely been better, and he definitely has some quote unquote bad data in there because he was hurt. And now he's maybe rounding back into some of that old form. God, it's funny. I used to play Watney at like 1% all the time. Now I've kind of got off him and I'm not sure when to jump back on. Maybe I will this week. He could be, if I look and I realize that this Fratelli idea was just terrible idea, maybe I'll move some shares to Watney. That's interesting.
I am going to go back to Kevin Streelman as well. He just has he's 6th, 14th, 17th the last 3 years at this course. And even looking at his recent form, the ball striking is back, but shocker, he can't putt. But hey, he never really putts all that well. He can make a few here because they're tiny greens, and the scrambling isn't a disaster. But the guy I really want to bring up, the guy I want to mention to you, is this the week to play Joel Damon?
The bucket, man. Raiden is back from the dead.
No one will use him now.
No, that can confirm. God, I thought you were going to say Bo Hostler.
No, but this does seem like it should be a good Bo Hostler track with scrambling being so key.
Yeah, and he makes, like I said, I've never seen someone where he needs 6 strokes gained putting just to top 25. Like for him to win, it's going to have to be 15 because his irons are just broken. God damn. I certainly have more interest. I avoided Dahmen last week. I got off. I was not on that. Worked out well, of course. The ownership is going to be non-existent. I just don't know exactly where his game is at. A little hesitant to go there, to be honest. I would have said, I probably would have hung on to Kyle Stanley. Thank God he withdrew. It's amazing. The withdrawal is not to go back to that. But Uline, Bill Haas, Stanley, Kirk, those guys get me into trouble every single week. Like, this is set up perfectly for me now on that level. But, Dahmen, I'm going to counter that and say I would rather take a stab with someone like Chesson Hadley, who was all over the course last week. He was scoring like a banshee, just made a ton of mistakes as well.
I think down in that range, Corey Connor is the one that I like the most just because of the ball striking. I think that he can just pile up birdies in a hurry if he starts making some putts. So I'll have a little exposure to him. Jimmy Walker is the other one down here who just kills this course every year. Even when he's crappy Jimmy Walker, he shows up to Pebble Beach and all of a sudden he's like old Jimmy Walker again.
He does. Obviously, he's another one. He benefits when he can avoid the spraying because he gets crazy. He goes off the cliffs if he has to take drive. You know, that's not his game, but he loves this course. I don't mind that. I should have asked you that. You know, it's a shame I didn't ask you this last week. I could have saved myself some money. Is Steve Stricker just not good, like permanently?
He's 900 years old. How good do people want Steve Stricker to be? Someone actually tweeted at me. It was just like, oh, something. It's like, you always say you got to play Steve Stricker. It's like, I don't think I've ever said that in my life. I don't think I've ever played Steve Stricker.
I never used to play him. And then I got caught 6,500. I was like, he'll be fine. He'll make the cut. That was not true. Yeah, I don't know. Him and Killa Keith are just sitting there.
Oh no. Keep me away from Keith Mitchell.
You and me both. Keith Mitchell.
He couldn't have made a run on the weekend like anything, man. Like it really would have helped. You didn't have to shoot 6 over on the weekend.
He was in the pseudo last group. He was on the other side, like finishing up with Ricky, and he was just making outrageous numbers on Sunday. He was
he did save our ass by going birdie to make the cut.
Super clutch. I thought that was a shot tracker error when he hit it to 10 inches on that last hole. That I give him credit for that because I thought Neiman had gotten in and he just gets it to even and it just didn't even actually matter. Poor guy. But Killa Keith, I don't know if around the green and this stuff is going to be pertinent. Could be a long probably 3 days for him, sadly.
Yeah, I'm done on Killa Keith for this week. And you want him on Bermuda, you do not want him on POA. Like Bermuda seems to be the only putting surface where he has a chance to make a 6-foot putt. Scott Stallings is someone I'm going to use though. I like where the ball striking's at with PED Scott.
He's another one. I mean, last 2 years here, it's been good things.
He loves POA, man. You get him he always plays well at Farmers. He plays well at this course. Yeah, even Riviera, he tends to play well. Like there's something about the West Coast, something about these greens, the rough, the putting surface that he's won at Torrey Pines before. It's nuts.
Yeah, that's insane. No, I mean, and I don't think it's a huge opportunity cost to go there just because of the other people we've mentioned. I don't like some of these guys, I see flyers and I get it. Scott Stallings is in that group. It's not like I'm making an outrageous stand against guys that I really like. So I think the low 7s are wide open. And like you said, he has some serious splits in his favor this week.
Last guy of that range, actually, Pat Perez tends to play this course really well. I don't have a ton of interest just based on his recent form. Are you going back to the well with TPJ, defending champ?
No, I can't do that. I'd rather play JJ Spawn. I'll leave it at that.
I'm just looking to see what TPJ. I used TPJ last year on DraftKings and bet him top 20 and hit him in, and it still pisses Feinberg off that I hit him at 125-1 after at the beginning of the third round. That's the one thing at this course that if you do want to betting before the tournament kind of sucks because it's so unpredictable. But where 2 of the courses aren't on TV and no one's paying attention, if people start lighting up those courses, I think he was 6 under through 7 holes or something, and they didn't change his odds whatsoever because no one was paying attention to those courses. That's sort of an extra 2% thing that you can get in on in-play wagering if people are lighting up Spy Hill or Monterey. That you can just take advantage of that because the books don't adjust in time.
I do remember that he legitimately, it was just he's going to shoot 55 and no one, they can't get a drone over there or something. So there you go. That's obviously super sharp. Keep an eye out for that stuff. And a week like this, you can probably find some good edges live betting it.
Well, he was bad last week in Phoenix. He lost a stroke on approaches. He gained over his stroke off the tee. He lost almost 6 strokes putting. So that's not good. The week previous, or the 2 weeks previous at Sony, 8.5 strokes on approach. That was the thing.
On one of the shows I was doing, he was brought up and it was just we hadn't seen him since Hawaii. He had the ball striking's been there. I just don't think I can do it. I don't know. It's probably a small leak in my game where, especially with a random winner like that, I just can't get there. I would rather play. I know we talked about him. Someone like Joel Domin if I had to over him.
$6,000 area.
Oof.
Which scrubs are we going to?
Ooh, let's see.
I think
Brian
Brian. I was just looking at Brian Gay. He hits a ton of fairways. I don't know if it becomes like a putting contest. He could definitely win one of those. But it could just be a week to go to the very bottom and hope the guy gets through the cut and allows you to stack everyone at the top.
At the very bottom?
I got Freddie Jacobsen at 6K.
Oh my God.
Freddie Yaks, yakety yak. He's on the comeback. Good week.
Yeah.
Made the cut at Waste Management.
I know, because I was slow squeezing scores and I would think Noren did something and it was just Freddie Jacobsen doing things. And it's like,
he's been hurt for like 2 years, but his last 5 turns at this tournament, 4th, miscut, 7th.
He is the flat min. I thought you were going to say Ryan Ruffles, who's the flat min.
Now, Ryan Ruffles is like the old Matthew Wolff.
Oh, he's like 5 Matthew Wolff. We had the panda in between him and Wolff, don't forget.
I feel like Ryan Ruffles is probably still only 20 years old.
Oh, yeah. He was like 14 when him and Phil were gambling that time.
Ryan Ruffles' age. I'm curious now. He's 20 years old.
Yeah, that's the Devin Booker formula. I mean, the way DraftKings has been pricing lately, obviously, you can build differently. You know, you take a flat 6K, it opens it up. That is a huge difference. I was going to throw out Kramer Hickok as a deep flyer, but if he was, that $900 it's not ideal. I wish he was flat 6K. I'd feel a lot more comfortable taking a blind stab on someone like that.
You know who I actually do like, and I probably will use just a touch of Freddie Axe because he's my guy. I like Freddie Axe. At $6,200, if we're going to talk about fairways, around the green work, and wedges, Ben Silverman rates out shockingly well.
Ben Silverman.
Canadian Ben Silverman.
Boy. So you're going to take so you're going Canadian stack. Hadwin, Connors, Silverman.
Might as well throw Svensson into the mix too.
I didn't even know that guy was Canadian, but I do see him in the 6s.
And David Hearn. He's another one who rates. Apparently Canadians just love Pebble Beach.
Where's Graham DeLette? Ever coming back?
I honestly have no idea what happened to Graham DeLette. He hurt his back and he's just on Twitter now, rooting for the Rough Riders.
just not ever. Nick Taylor's here too. Beautiful. Ben Silverman, he did not even make my initial cut. Like I cut like 30 guys who I thought had no chance, and he was sadly eliminated. So I'll have to go back and take a look at old the Silverman.
It's either really good in terms of his numbers or really bad. Like he's one of the worst in the field on approach. He's bad from long distances, but you get him around the green and get him to hit fairways, he can do that.
Are you going to fall into the Patrick Rogers? I don't even want to say it's a trap, but just I've seen his name and I get it. I don't know if I'm there though. He has been god awful, and I'm usually a Patrick Rogers truther. I just don't know if this is even a spot to try to buy low.
The only thing that he does well is he scores on those short par 3s or those short par 4s, 350 to 400. Despite how terrible he's been, he's still top 10 in the field on par 4s from that range over the past 24 rounds. And long term, he rates out very successful on those type of holes too. Other names that randomly weirdly pop up there, like Alex Prue is top 5 in that range. He's also top 20 off the tee. Davis Love is someone that rates out incredibly well too in the upper $6,000 range.
Davis Love. I can't, after Steve Stricker, I think I'm a little gun shy on guys who, like, Davis Love's got to be pushing. How old is he?
53, I want to say. Hey, he won on the PGA Tour as a 50-year-old.
Yeah,
and he was like good at the Sony Open, as I recall.
No, he's up there. I mean, he usually can't sustain it.
He was 7th at Sony.
That's absurd. There really is. Him, Jerry Kelly, Big Earn, all playing okay. But no, I don't think I can go to any of those guys. I would rather probably take flyers on guys like Wyndham Clark, who's flashed a little. These are very aggressive. I'm going to try to avoid this as much as I can. I don't think we have like basically no data on people like Curtis Luck, guys like that who, I've seen them early in the year and they flashed a little, then they fell back, obviously, because it's a flash in the pan at best. It's not a lot in the 6s that I feel too confident with.
Well, how much was Svensson? 6,900. That might be too expensive. He's actually like, out of all like the random losers we've just talked about, he's actually been kind of good.
He has. He's one that's shown up a bit. I've been enamored with Cameron Davis, who I don't even know how I got started on this experiment.
I was just looking at him.
I don't know why I played him in the first place, and I'm still waiting for that to pay real dividends. Maybe this is the week, but I don't know. I don't even know what to say about him. Maybe I'll put him with Day and make some type of Aussie combination.
Brian Stewart has made 3 cuts in a row, including a top 10 at Sony. Like he's a short hitter who can hit wedges pretty well. Chris Stroud is another one like that, although I always get the two mixed up in my mind. Like it's really tough down here. That again, we talked about going back to the very top, like some of these expensive guys that you can use. That I think it kills a lot of ownership. I think these 9K guys, the Phils, Spieth, Reed, even Cantlay to an extent, maybe even Reavie, might just get overlooked because no one wants to dip into the 6K range. And if you do play Dustin, which everyone's going to want to do, that those guys just completely get overlooked, that maybe starting 9K is the move.
It's very possible. With the 54-hole cut, though, I'm a little more incentivized to say, you know what, I'm going to jam one of these guys and just hope that they can score and I can build uniquely. Because I agree. I think a lot of people, when they go to build, are going to find themselves in different price points than they anticipated. I want to throw out one guy, and this is a guy I play all the time. I had to stop playing him, but he's coming back. I don't think this is the spot, but Grayson is starting to play better.
Oh, my man. Next week is Grayson week.
Grayson is starting to get it together. And last year and the year, even when Grayson was rolling, I was playing him at like 2-3% the time.
Do you remember when we first started doing shows together? I was on the Fan Vice show with you and Andrew, and we talked about Grayson every single week because he was ball striking out of control. He ended up like leading up to a win at one of the crossover. I think it was Barbasol that he ended up winning. But everyone hated his guts so much that no one would play him, and he'd be 2%. Right. He'd be 2% and getting top 10s every week.
Yep. No, his off the course antics has made him super underrated in DFS only. He loses like 8 strokes on the approach, and I understand that that's a problem, obviously, but he's, I think, starting to get it together. I'm waiting. Next week. Obviously, I don't think this is the greatest spot, but keep an eye on Grayson out there. I think we see him start to become a factor again real soon.
He lost fewer strokes last week on approach than he had normally, and he actually gained strokes on the field from 125 to 150, which is a range that he could be in here a lot. Maybe I can talk. He's made 2 straight cuts. He's putting well on POA. He scores on par 5s.
Don't call it a comeback. 6,300.
Let's do it. Let's throw Grayson into the player pool and see what happens.
I like it. That was Albertson's price last week. Let's continue.
Great. Fantastic.
We gotta continue that trend. Maybe I like I said, I may look to him then if he has anything, because I want to kind of buy low on him. I'm just not sure it's this week.
So the final thing that I'll close on, I've sorted this to the last 12 rounds, and you can do this on Fantasy National. You can customize the stat engine any way you want, but there's a proprietary stat that we have at Fantasy National called opportunities gained, which means it's a green in regulation or a fringe in regulation that's 15 feet or less, what we consider a scoring opportunity. That's a makeable birdie putt. Here are your leaders in opportunities gained. Think of it as like super advanced greens in regulation. Past 12 rounds, the hottest guys at pin seeking in the field. Do you know who's number 1?
Scott Piercy.
Now, Scott Piercy's actually 4th, but Davis Love the 3rd.
That's disturbing. There he is. Look at that. He's just hitting them close, apparently. If I even now, I might have to just play one lineup with Davis Love the 3rd just to have one. Man, I always worry about if it's like how low can he even go.
But what if hey, he's gonna be playing with his son, Davis Love the 4th, aka Drew Love.
Yeah, Drew. There you go. It's that's not his, that's just his celebrity partner, or is he in the tournament?
No, he's actually in the field.
Okay. I was gonna say, man, talk about your all-time backfire.
I always like Graham McDowell plays with his dad as the AM, and his dad is so bad. It was
That's-
no. Maybe it's Lee Westwood that played with his dad one year, but whoever it was
Westwood.
he was just horrendous. It was awesome.
Oh yeah, we didn't even mention whatever the guy's name is, Hun Soo Choi.
You going there?
No, that's a no for me, dog.
He's $6,400, and at least you'd have to pay attention to watch him swing.
You're probably going to get at least, in this, it's good luck finding your golfers on TV. You'll get plenty of coverage of that guy doing his antics for sure.
So top 10 in opportunities gained overall.
Yeah,
Past 12. Davis Love, Tom Lovelady, Corey Connors, Scott Piercy, Lucas Glover, Cantlay, Kokrak, Palmer, Prue, Graham McDowell, Matt Kuchar, and the Gim Reaper.
Ryan Palmer, not surprised. Yeah, obviously, that's one of those things you have to factor out. Some of those guys, it makes sense. Glover, Piercy, that they can't putt, but it's more of like someone like Cantlay. It's nice to see him on there. It says maybe when the putter comes, around again, and it should. I don't see anything wrong with that. He could get back to where we're kind of accustomed to him being.
Yeah, well, Connors is really the outlier in all of this, just how good his numbers are over the short term, where he's third in that opportunities gained. He is first from 100 to 125 yards. He is fifth in the field from 125 to 150 and third from 150 to 175. Don't ask this guy to hit a hybrid or a 3-iron. Get a wedge in his hand, you can start making some birdies. And he popped at Valspar too last year, which is another short course, and he played really well at Sony, another short course. Maybe that's sort of his jam.
Is that the last? I don't have it in front of me. Has he played since?
He played the Desert Classic, and I remember he was going to be chalky, so he was just like an auto fade that week for me. But how did he missed the cut he was third at Sony, and then he was miscut at the Desert Classic.
But again, and that's the kind of stuff I can use that as an example. People may see that and they say, "Oh, but we don't know what he did at the Desert Classic."
No, that's one round of data.
Exactly. So it's like you look at that, you have no idea what actually happened. So I'm when we don't know, you can embrace that. And I think that makes me more interested in a guy coming off a cut at something like the Desert Classic.
125 to 1 too, and you could probably get him at a deeper number on a different book. I actually took it. I'm feeling some Canadian vibes, some national pride, which I so rarely have for whatever reason for Canadians at Pebble Beach.
All right. Well, maybe they'll. You'd said all the Americans have been winning. Maybe someone like Corey Connors can crash the party.
Yeah, they probably just count him as American anyway.
Yeah. Well, North American. There we go. Is there anyone else? Man, it's tough. Yeah. But like we've seen, it is wide open. We've seen even with the strong field up top. Obviously, if Ted Potter Jr. and DA Points and Vaughn Taylor can win here, it's open for guys like that to get going and certainly get in contention.
Any idea how Fabian Gomez has been recently?
Can't say I'm up on Grillo is as that starts and ends my Argentinian golfers.
Let's see. Let's see, Mr. Gomez. How have you been?
There's another one, that Julian Etelun dude.
Oh, Julian Etienne, or whatever the hell his name is. I see his name spelled, and I just assume he's French, and it turns out he's Argentinian. Gomez actually hasn't been bad. He's missed 2 cuts in a row, but he's ball striking incredibly well.
He's the kind of guy I'm always like, oh wow, he's 5 under through 7 holes, and then he just ends up in like 46th.
Classic Fabian Gomez, except for that typical. 1 year he ran down Snedeker at Sony and won.
Yes, Fabian Gomez, 6,600. Next to Steven Yeager, who never actually became good, but we shall see. Kelly Craft. Yeah, God, there's just so many.
Well, that's also the big thing. There's 156 players in the field. It's the biggest field that we're going to see all year. Yeah,
and only 60 are going to find Sunday. That can be brutal, and you don't want to fall in love. Depending on obviously how many lineups you're making, you don't want to rake yourself and start taking flyer after flyer. You got to find ways to try to at least say, if I get these handful of guys right, I'm going to have a reasonable shot to get paid off.
All right. Ben Rasa at JazzRazDFS on Twitter, at awesemo.com. Tell everyone your shooting schedule for the week, because I know you got a ton of golf content coming out.
We got a ton of golf content tomorrow, 2:30.
I mean, this is going to air tomorrow. So today at 2:30.
today at 2:30. Boom, put it on the board. Tuesday, 2:30. Me and Tim Frank, we'll be spewing a lot of nonsense, breaking this down. Get his takes, get my takes. Then Wednesday night, me and Jason Roslin. Obviously, if you haven't joined the site, you can use the promo code JazzRaz. You get a half of your first month purchase off. You can check out everything behind the paywall, articles, projections. Obviously, we have a ton of other sports there. Great team. But yeah, football is now officially over, and golf is going to start to ramp up. So it is an exciting time of the year.
All right, I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me on Twitter at the PME, same as Facebook, same as Instagram. My betting cheat sheet will be up on that Facebook page Wednesday afternoon. My cheat sheet for DK will be up on DKPlaybook.com on Tuesday evening. Subscribe to the podcast. And if you leave a review and leave your DK handle and say something nice about the show, you're in a draw for $20 DK, as you are if you smash the like button, leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section. Tell me your 2 favorite players in the $6,000 range. I just want to give away somebody. Join the listener league too. It's a good tournament. You going to play?
Oh, absolutely. You weren't lying when you said that might be the best tournament anywhere. It's rake free. Get on in there. I love the structure. I need to win. I want that tournament. I have not done anything in it. Maybe this week, one of my bullets can get through.
I've cashed every week in that tournament, but nothing big. Like I just get my money back every week.
I'm holding my own. Yeah, no, I've had some cashes, but I haven't done anything of value. So that's half the battle. Tread water, and eventually you get a couple that have a real chance over the course of the year.
Fuck, I treaded water for 3 years in DraftKings golf before I finally hit something big.
I not to go back on that, but I know it seems frustrating, but if you are playing, especially if you're playing GPPs, even if you're taking losses, as long as you're not getting smoked, that's kind of a success. I know it seems annoying and frustrating, but my God, 1 week, you're Satoshi, like that makes up for, it could be years of entries depending on what you hit. So,
I mean, for the amount that I play, like I don't play nearly to the level that you do in terms of overall volume and money invested. Like I'm playing like $150, $200 a week. I'm busy doing the shows, and I like to put my 20, 25 in the $5. I like to play my 3 max entries, and maybe some weeks if I'm feeling good about it, I'll play, I'll max out the $20 3 max or playing the $100 single entry. But like winning 20K, like I'm never going to be down at DraftKings golf. Like I just don't invest that much playing.
No, and that's, like I said, it can take, it's not, you want to just hit that immediately, but it could take a while, even if you're making great teams. So you want to just stick with it, try to just grind it out and negate the weeks where you're just getting absolutely smoked. But I'm with you. No, you gotta keep chugging along. Hopefully get 6 of 6 to Sunday. And then the real fun begins with Old Pebble Beach. This is going to be an interesting week for sure.
It's funny because of that Heritage Week. That was a week where like 3% of people got 6 of 6 through the cut, and I played 20 lineups, and I think I had 13 6 of 6 lineups because I didn't play anyone over $10,000. And I think they all missed the cut except for Dustin, and he didn't end up playing well anyway. So I had like Bill Haas in that lineup, and can't lay it. It was just that week where I was like, screw it. I'm not taking any of the popular guys. I'll take someone else. And it seems like it never works. But again, the Heritage was the week after the Masters. That was like the 13th tournament of the year. Like it's 4 months on paper, but it's only really 13 actual slates.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things. It seems like it never works because most of the time it doesn't. It's just when it does, you can get paid off such an exponential amount of, in terms of value. You're not going to, it would be nice to get it right the majority of the time, but that's just not realistic.
All right, that'll do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. Thank you all for watching this week. Again, like the episode, sub to the pod, leave a review, get your shot at $20 DK, and use those $20 DK to go into the description of the video or podcast and use the link to join the Pat Mayo Experience DraftKings Open. Best tournament on DraftKings. Like Ben said, that's no lie. But good luck this week at Pebble Beach. Don't get too frustrated with the TV coverage because it's brutal. Just watch some more Pat Mayo Experience. All right? I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!